Have you ever entered a store to buy something in particular only to find that the store does not have it? It seems like every time this happens, the store clerk has enough downtime to watch you come in and leave empty-handed. This situation is always stressful for me because I feel as if the store clerk assumes I stole something. I feel an uneasiness, and for some reason I forget how to act normal. But how can this be possible when you've done nothing wrong? This type of situation is the closest I can imagine, on a much smaller scale, to the stress of expecting discrimination before it happens. The expectation that someone thinks or has judged you to be wrong for no other reason than what the person believes that you might possibly do. Over the years, most of us and many of us have learned that anything associated with the word discrimination is a bad thing. The American Psychological Association describes discrimination as the unfair or prejudiced treatment of people and groups based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. Discrimination can affect anyone for any reason, but typically affects minority groups, minority religions, or individuals whose beliefs do not match up with mainstream views. When we think of discrimination, we tend to think of physical violence and hate crimes. However, the American Psychological Association reports that these are also verbal crimes as well as they are physical violence. September 11, 2001 is the date that lives in infamy for all of those who lived through the experience. It becomes obvious that most still have strong feelings of helplessness and shock when they recall that day. They remember where they were, what they were doing, and the first footage that they witnessed on the television screen on the day of 9/11. Although I was born the very next day and did not witness the tragic event, the reactions of those around me were enough to know the impact that this day had on our nation. Research indicates that Americans possess a lingering resentment towards Arabs and Muslims in America post-2001. The resentment likely began as fear, and is just likely that fear would be found at the core beliefs of those who continue to harbor such resentment. It is explained that there are clear misunderstandings about Islam and those who practice the faith at the heart of this discrimination, and further states that the reasons behind American misunderstandings can be traced back to media stereotypes. In the United States, the Muslim American population is largely misunderstood and understudied. It is explained that the two most typical Muslim stereotypes are the image of a Muslim Arab terrorist and an oppressed, veiled Muslim woman. In stark contrast to media stereotypes, it is explained that the American Muslim population primarily consists of South Asian and African American ethnicities, not Arab American, as many most likely do assume. It is explained that the term Muslim is a religious label that does not pertain to race and somehow has become a synonym with the Arab American ethnicity. It is also described that Islamophobia is a deep social anxiety towards the Islam religion. The years following September 11, 2001 became a nightmare of discrimination for Muslim and Arab groups. It is suggested that the events of 9/11 created a climate in which many Americans felt united almost against a new enemy, and acts of hatred against that enemy became normalized, accepted, and encouraged. It is explained that anti-Muslim physical violence increased 52% between 2003 and 2004, and hate crimes actually decreased among all groups except Muslims and Arabs in the years following September 11, 2001. FBI statistics from 2002 indicate a 1,600% increase in such hate crimes between the years of 2000 and 2002. Discrimination is a toxic, cancerous tumor to a diverse and accepting society with negative implications for all that are involved. The chronic stress of discrimination can work like a domino effect and leads to psychological stress, emotional problems, and a decline in physical health. It was found that post 9/11 abuse and discrimination were associated with increased physiological distress, reduced levels of happiness, and poor health conditions than peer groups. It also showed that depression and anxiety were more relevant in these groups. It appears that the chronic stress of discrimination has resulted in development of health conditions and has led peers to further push themselves away from seeking help with the fear of being further discriminated. It was reported that negative attitudes towards Muslim Americans have detrimental effects on society as a large, as well as the minority group itself. The underlying fears of Muslim Americans mirror the stress of the society at large in a cycle state of chronic stress. It is reported that there is a perceived loss of personal control among discrimination victims that appear to greatly increase the level of hypervigilance experienced by the individual. We are a nation suffering with the negative side effects of traumatic stress, with everyone seemingly afraid of another based on something they might do situation. This from the nation with a Statue of Liberty proclaiming acceptance and strength to the rest of the world. The impact of fear can and has devastated a once happy and accepting nation. Remember the poem Emile Zora's written in 1883 for our great Statue of Liberty and decide for yourself if you want to represent our nation with strength and acceptance or if you want to represent our nation with fear and seclusion.